Hey, I'm here with Rick Moses. And Rick, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, my earliest recollection, actually, I was quite clear. I wanted to be an actor. It was the first thing I remember wanting to be. Uh, I must say, there's probably a second category that came up later, but it turned out to be sort of related to that. I think I wanted to be a professional wrestler. That appealed to me, and I like of course, that is show business. So,
Right.
essentially, I didn't want to be anything but an actor from the earliest that I can recall. Something to do with being in the theater in the dark and seeing what's there and saying, I know I have something to do with that.
Right.
So I was very clearly motivated by that from an early age.
Now, your mother was an actor, so obviously that affected you.
Well, you would think. Curiously enough, my mother wasn't an actress. She didn't become an actress until she was in her 30s. So I would have been already, 10, 11 years old, 12 years old even by the time that my mother became an actress. It's interesting. You know.
And your father was...
In fact, we used to run lines together, my mother and I, God rest her soul. And I think she got interested in it. Not that I wasn't inspired on so many profound levels by my mother, but I mean to say that probably on a professional level, she became interested in acting by running lines with me as a kid. She had put me in some professional acting class for kids when I was growing up in Pasadena. She used to schlep me out to Hollywood for that. And I think she became interested after that. Of course, she did very well. Okay.
You're the oldest child?
I'm the oldest of four Moseses.
Yeah. And your dad, what did he do for a living?
My father, God rest his soul, was in advertising, and he was a magna cum laude graduate of Yale, and was one of the hot shots of the advertising business very early on. I think was quite successful very young.
Where did you grow
up? Initially, not far from here, when they moved from Philadelphia to California, and Pittsburgh, Philadelphia to California. And I grew up here around South Orange Grove, and then in Pasadena. As my parents got more successful, that was considered the better neighborhood at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how were you raised religiously?
I was an Episcopalian Christian.
So both your parents were Gentiles?
That's right, yes.
And were you in church every week?
Yeah, that was for sure. My mother, in fact, was a Sunday school teacher, a very good one, and that was very much a part of our social culture, if you will.
Right. And you believed in God as a kid?
Always believed in God.
Did you believe that Jesus was God?
Curiously enough, from my earliest recollections, I did not respond well, if you will. I believed in God. I was interested in the stories of the Old Testament. I was interested in creation, Adam and Eve, these extraordinarily interesting stories, which I learned directly from my mother as she was reading from the King James Version. And the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses and the Jews, the Exodus, the miracles of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus. That always impressed me from an earliest age. And I was not indoctrinated. I was taught the straight theology by both my parents and my grandparents on my mother's side, God rest their souls. Straight theology of Christianity. And I didn't respond to it. I wasn't hostile to it, but I did not respond to it. And this made sense, of course, by virtue of the fact that we're both converts and speaking at this point. You know.
And where did you go to high school?
I went to a private school in Palos Verdes called Chadwick, junior high in the first year of high school. And my father he had gone from Phillips Andover in Massachusetts to Yale, and his family, I think, was based in Chicago suburbs in Illinois. And he had gone to Andover, and I had been a successful athlete, and I was on the honor roll in school, and I was an all CIF swimmer, and fairly full of myself. And my father very cleverly came to me and said, "I understand that you like it here, and I understand why you really wouldn't want to face a serious challenge like Andover, because it makes sense you wouldn't want to do that." And I said, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? You know, this is a challenge, lay it down." And that was his goal, of course, and he achieved it well. So I went to Andover, Massachusetts, which is I think it's the oldest private school of its kind, and might be the oldest school in America, but I'm not entirely certain. And I graduated from there, but I knew I became again. I was continued to do well, thank God, in the things that I was already good at. I became an All-American swimmer and they call it prep school All-American. And let's see, anything else come to mind about that? And I would commute regularly. Part of the attraction, so my parents were divorced and my father lived in New York, so I would spend weekends quite regularly in New York City from commuting from Massachusetts to there, and that was very, I guess the word is cool. You know.
How old were you when your parents divorced?
I think 12. Yeah, 12 years old.
And how did it affect you?
Curiously, they had stopped living together. It seemed to me it was self-evident that they had not lived together for a period of time, and I was not, and I had a very close relationship with each of them, and I never found it troubling at all. I just thought it was just, oh yeah, okay, you don't get along, that's cool. I was already a young man in some respects, and so I was looking towards the future, and it was like, hey, whatever your problems are, that's cool. These things have profound meanings on people's lives, and I became aware as the years passed that it had a profound and painful effect on my younger brothers. But I was mercifully spared that. It didn't, I think just based on the particular closeness to my father and my mother, and they were both kind to each other, which I know from experience now is also unusual.
Right. And what kind of crowd were you in at Andover?
Well, I was a jock, you know. If that's what defined it, but I was a jock who was an artist, an aspiring artist. I had been blessed with musical gifts, and I was playing in bands and things like that. I had done that even before back in California, and so I sort of spanned all the cliques in one way or another. I was considered a jock by virtue of my appearance and my endeavors in that area. I had become interested in martial arts at a very early age, and so I was, the one thing, swimming is sort of straight ahead, but martial arts is not, and then playing music is not. And so what you called, everyone was, the essential groups were the jocks and the freaks. And I had my roots in both of them, actually.
We're talking 1966 to 1970?
Well, I graduated in 71.
Okay, so 68 to 71.
Yeah.
What about drugs? Did you do drugs?
Never was interested in that, thank God. I was certainly exposed to it. And when you say, did I ever do it, as I became a professional actor and a professional musician, based here in Los Angeles, that certainly was everywhere. And actually, it was probably just considered your job to make sure you know about these things. But happily, I never cared for it, and I couldn't see any advantages. It seemed that it was obviously disoriented. It didn't do anything to achieve a state of consciousness that couldn't be achieved naturally, and all it did is reduce one's capacity to achieve those states of consciousness on your own. I was able to catch that